Hey guys, how's it going? It's Nick. So there's been constant updates and news with the stimulus, and we're learning a lot from not only the top 1%, but the Fed, which is what I want to start out with. And I always mention the Fed because that's who's printing and giving out the money. So if you're looking out for stimulus, you got to focus on the Fed. If you're an investor in the stock market, they're looking out for the Fed. If you're on unemployment and where that money's coming from, it's from the Fed. So that's why I'm really focused on it, and that's why everyone really should be. They're definitely not shying away from printing more money. However, I know in previous videos I kind of mentioned it, but the money from the Fed doesn't only go out just to you and the public. It's a process. It has to be accepted by politicians first, through the government, and then the money is able to be used or transferred in some way. So the money's definitely going to be there. The problem is again, relating back to all of these updates with politicians, Democrats, Republicans, and how they're, quite frankly, wasting all this time kind of deciding on what the next step is going to be. Now with unemployment, it was maybe like a week or so ago, they said that 2.5 million jobs were created recently. Now some people are saying, hey, that was obviously a surprise. Some people are wondering, like, that's fantastic, or is that actually true? And actually just yesterday, we found that another 1.5 million people filed for unemployment. And again, people are wondering, because I believe that extra $600 for unemployment is going to continue until July. Now there are talks of if that's going to be extended, or is it going to go back into like, hey, if you go back to work, you get $450 per week. Now Jerome Powell, chairman of the Fed, actually talked about unemployment. He doesn't want to make a serious stand on what politicians decide to do. They obviously will provide funding for that, but I believe he definitely is leaning toward any type of stimulus in any way. It really depends on politicians at this point. Stimulus as well. If banks and these low interest rates, which we're going to talk about, if these aren't going to stimulate the economy, that's why the Fed might just produce stimulus right into your pocket, whether direct deposit, checks, or with these new debit cards out there. Just talked to a friend, his parents actually just got a debit card. So it seems like they're randomly sending it to 4 million people. I did an in-depth video of that, what you might want to look out for, and the details. You can check that out. And you're probably going to be sick of me saying the Fed by the end of this video, but that's where everyone is focused on. And that's where you have to be focused on. So the Fed, or Jerome Powell, talked about how obviously millions of people are on unemployment. The issue is millions of those people might not actually be able to go back to jobs. I saw a recent commercial with Indeed. They post jobs and everything, and I heard they posted like 500,000 more jobs. That's great. That's fantastic. The issue now is with the unemployment benefit. A lot of people are getting more on unemployment versus if they went back to work. A lot of people are just focusing in the short term. Obviously, you don't want to be unemployed for too long because it's going to be harder to get a job in the future. However, if you're getting a lot more on unemployment, you're probably going to stay on unemployment. So it doesn't matter on the jobs out there. A lot of people would probably stay unemployed. Now this brings us into the top 1% and just comparing what's going on with the high class, the medium class, and the lower class, or middle class, and the lower classes in our society. Now, the top 1%, or in the high class, or upper class, they're doing phenomenal because of the Fed helping the stock market. So they're just basically propping the stock market up. A lot of people, wealthy people, are investing, their stocks are going up, and that's how they're maintaining or growing their wealth. While people in the middle and lower classes aren't going anywhere. Places are still locked down. I mean, we might be going into phase one. Some businesses might be opening up, but that would still relate back to unemployment. If you're getting more there, will these jobs come back or exist? We could also talk about businesses. these small and medium-sized businesses that a lot of these lower or middle-class people work for, they've been locked down. Some of them just were driven out of business, that they are not opening back up. The Fed related to that, so a lot of people aren't going back to those jobs. And I'd argue a combination of basically all of this leads to social unrest with all these riots, with all these protests, and there's definitely more than one reason why people are going out to protests. And it's a legit reason. We're just dragging along with this stimulus that some people still didn't get their first one. The second one we're still waiting on. We're still unsure about unemployment benefits. Is there going to be any other help or assistance? This could then go into maybe like August, because you could, with mortgages or real estate, you could go into forbearance, so you don't lose your house. What if that delay, you could go into forbearance, it really won't hurt you, that would at some point end. You can't just not pay for a house and live there. So when that starts becoming an issue, there could be more problems in the economy, more protests of bigger issues, which is why stimulus is such an important topic, and the top 1%, basically no one likes them right now. Now I want to put a huge star next to interest rates. I listened to Jerome Powell talk with the Fed and his expectations of the economy. What's going on in the economy with your stimulus, it's all interconnected. And that's why we're talking about all of these different things. So with interest rates, if you're not aware, interest rates are at 0 or very close to 0% right now. That only happens when the economy is not doing well. Last recession in 2008, they dropped interest rates. Guess what? We're in another recession. The Fed is expecting to keep rates at 0 until at least 2022. That's another 2 years. So again, I hope everyone finds their jobs again. I hope everything opens back up. I hope there's a V-shaped recovery. But with all this stuff going on, with all this stimulus, it seems look at the stock market right now. I'll put up a picture for you. Yesterday, completely tanked. Today, slight rebound, doesn't really seem strong. But that really seems like we're all just walking on eggshells, and it doesn't seem like that strong economy that everyone was talking about months ago really exists, especially with this 0% interest rate. So if we don't see this stimulus, if we don't see more assistance, the economy could take a hit. And already, these small businesses and these lower class people are already getting destroyed. And that's an issue. There's a continuous gap of wealth and income gaps of the top 1% and the lower to middle classes. I could definitely argue the middle class is disappearing. It's going into either you're lower class or upper class. And if you're upper class, you're an investor in the stock market, the Fed is helping you out, and basically everything like that. So these concerns and issues with these protests could definitely only be the beginning, which is why I'd argue to not rely on the government for this assistance. Obviously, you would try to get another job, start side hustle, start working for yourself and benefit yourself rather than relying on these people, because it's just being delayed, it's being dragged, and we're all declining in the middle and lower classes. And it's really difficult to see because obviously with all this stuff going on, people are just sick of it. So no, unfortunately there is no update with the stimulus because everything is just being delayed. And government has their own process that just takes triple the amount of time to really do anything. So let me know what you guys think. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, let me know in the comment section down below. What are you seeing? What are you hearing with any of these things? Any of the protests going on? Heck, there's even talk of a new wave of the virus going on. So that's the next big thing that people could worry about. There's also politicians saying they cannot close down the economy for a second wave again. If that happens again, because then it would completely obliterate everyone else. Hopefully you guys are staying strong and making through these tough times. Don't forget to subscribe. I am keeping you up to date with not only the stimulus, but understanding it and how to live during these tough times financially. So thank you so much for watching, guys. Really appreciate it, and I'll see you in the next one.